So we've been looking at a series of types of chemical systems to see what controls whether something dissolves or not, and how to get something to dissolve it if it doesn't dissolve. And so next what we're going to do is we're going to look at one of the things that's most important to chemists in the lab, and that is how to get molecular compounds to dissolve together. Molecular compounds are small, usually small molecules that are neutral. Think like water's a molecular compound, carbon dioxide's a molecular compound, ethanol, ether that you hear about, or chloroform, and acetone that's used for removing nail polish. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix largely liquids and liquids together to see if they mix together. When liquids mix together, we don't use the term dissolution very much, we use the term miscibility. So if things are miscible, it means two liquids mix together completely. If they're immiscible, it means they form separate layers. And so you know that oil and water don't mix, so oil and water are said to be immiscible. And so what we're going to do is we want to use a general rule that chemists use for this, and that is that molecules of similar polarity will dissolve together, and molecules of very different polarity will not dissolve together. And this has the kind of cute phrase called, which is said, like dissolves like. Things of like polarity dissolve. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an experiment looking at a number of molecules. This is ethanol. This is acetonitrile, my favorite solvent when I do electrochemistry. This is acetone I just mentioned. We have some diethyl ether, chloroform. We have just iodine, which is not liquid, it's a solid, just elemental iodine. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at changes in molecular structure and how that influences whether things dissolve together or not. And what we want to test is whether or not it really does in fact follow the polarity of those molecules. We're going to measure the polarity of the molecules by doing computational chemistry, by calculating what's called the dipole moment of the molecules. And the dipole moment is the partial charges in the molecule, how large those charges are and how far they are apart from each other. So we'll calculate those partial charges, we'll look at the combinations of these different compounds and see which ones dissolve and not, and then finally what we'll do is we'll look at ways of getting things that are not soluble together to become soluble together. Okay, the way we're going to do these experiments is we're going to put one liquid in a test tube and then add another liquid into it with a dropper. And so I'm going to do an example here. I'm going to tell you what they are. That there are two liquids. I'm going to add one to the other. And then what we'll do is we'll be able to see whether they mix or not. And to do that, we're going to have to zero in really close so you can see whether there's one layer or two when we shake it. You have to shake it a little bit. And you can tell that there's two liquids. And so we'll normally look at these using a close-up, and we'll shake it, and you can kind of tell that there's two layers there. One starting from right here down, the other one from here up. And so these two liquids are immiscible. Okay, sometimes you just need to be honest with yourself and say, they can't see that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of water with red food dye. And now what you can see is it's very clear now that there's a layer with red dye on the bottom and another layer on top. So we'll be using water with red food dye. So whenever you see red color, that is water with some dye in it.